The Cognitive Information Processing Theory, presented by Amy Hall. Have you ever wondered, how can I remember a song from 20 years ago, but have trouble remembering what I wore yesterday? Or why does the sound of my name in a crowded room capture my attention? Or how is it possible that I can perform several things at one time? The answer to these questions and many others about how we think and remember information can be found within the Cognitive Information Processing Theory. Within this presentation, I will refer to the Cognitive Information Processing Theory as CIP. CIP theorists compare the way our brain works to the functions of a computer. Input is received, and this information is processed, organized, and stored, and then an output is produced. Two major contributors to the CIP theory were Richard Atkinson and Richard Shiffrin, who developed a multi-store model to explain the cognitive processes. Their multi-store model is composed of three stores: the sensory memory, the short-term memory, and the long-term memory. It is the flow and processing of information through these three stores that account for learning. So let's take a brief look at each store. The first store is the sensory memory. Learners receive information via the senses, such as visual and auditory, and then house this information for approximately 3 to 5 seconds. At this point, the learner must use it or lose it. The key to using the information is the learner's attention to that information. There are several types of attention that can be used by the learner, including selective attention, automaticity, and pattern recognition. The first one is selective attention, where the learner focuses more attention to certain information over competing information. This explains why we can be in the middle of a conversation in a crowded room, ignore all other conversations, yet respond to our name being said. The second type is automaticity, where the learner can multitask when certain information becomes second nature. This explains why we can drive and listen to or sing our favorite song. The driving has become the automatic skill. The third type is pattern recognition, where the learner recognizes some part of the information for additional processing. This is like when you recognize someone's face, but can't remember their name. When the information in the sensory memory is attended to, it is transferred to the short-term memory for more processing. The short-term memory is where information is processed. The short-term memory decides where, when, and how to organize and store information, controls processing functions, makes sense of new information, produces responses, and searches for and retrieves information from the long-term memory. CIP theorists believe that the short-term memory's capacity is limited to 7 plus or minus 2 items of information. Imagine 7 holding cells where information is placed. Once all the cells are full, the short-term memory must empty a cell in order to accept new information. One of the short-term memory's major functions is processing the information. 3 of these processes include rehearsal, chunking, and coding. Rehearsal is the repeated review of information in order to transfer it to the long-term memory. This can occur through flashcards or studying the information over and over again. Elaboration during rehearsal can help solidify the information in long-term memory. Chunking is the process of breaking down large amounts of information into manageable parts to enlarge the capacity of short-term memory. For example, a learner is given a list of 19 letters, which exceeds short-term memory's capacity. The learner can chunk the letters into 6 pieces, which is easier to remember and fits within the short-term memory's capacity. Coding is the process of converting information into a usable form, such as mnemonics, outlines, and graphic organizers. Retrieval of information from the long-term memory also occurs during coding to help the short-term memory make sense of the new information. Once the short-term memory processes the information and decides on where, how, and when to store it, the information is then transferred to the long-term memory. Long-term memory is the final storage destination for information and is considered permanent. Information can be stored in the long-term memory in a variety of ways, including networks of nodes linked by paths, buckets of information that share similar characteristics, proposition statements linking a concept to a single characteristic, or connections made between concepts. CIP theorists are also interested in the retrieval and forgetting of data stored in the long-term memory. The retrieval of information is initiated by the short-term memory, which searches for information to make sense of the information in the holding cells. This search also helps the short-term memory determine where to store the information. Retrieval of information can be assisted through the introduction of cues in the environment. CIP theorists believe that information is permanent in the long-term memory, but forgetting can occur as a result of incorrect coding, interference, and inadequate probes that lead to a failure in searching to retrieve the information. This multi-store model created by Atkinson and Shiffrin provides a general framework of human cognition and learning by illuminating how the mind processes, stores, and retrieves information. So, the next time you wonder why you can't remember what you wore yesterday, why your name said in a crowded room gets your attention, or why you can multitask, look to the cognitive information processing theory for your answers.